Questions, please?
Hello?
Hello. You sound like a robot.
Oh, something like
So you're gonna...
Okay, maybe I just typing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
You just jump in and jump out real fast, and then you can ask your question. We'll wait for you.
Hello, how do I sound now?
You sound
Is it
normal.
better?
Yes.
Okay. I just have one question. Like,
One question
can you talk,
overall.
yeah, can you talk about your thinking about achieve like a creative fulfillment?
Wait, what? Say it again.
Like, what do you think how to achieve creative fulfillment?
Oh, creative fulfillment. I thought you said, how
Yes.
do you create creative humans? It's a bizarre question, but I'll see if I can answer it. But no, creative fulfillment, that makes more sense. So creative fulfillment is something that I think a lot of people try to work on. And what I've come to the conclusion to is that I think most of us who are creatively driven wants to constantly be making or experiencing new things on a regular. And not all of us, but a good number. And what I've discovered, I think, is one of the solutions to this problem is to just go and learn new things often.
Yep.
Okay? And that means that even if you get a job and you make good money and you're accomplished, you should still find time to make your own stuff, make you things that you like. Because, hold on just a second, I'll just do this. Because what happened to me, for instance, was that I constantly was chasing this idea of success. And because it never arrived, I was always kind of felt like I had to, well, this next thing that I need to do is what is going to fulfill me. And this next thing, and this next thing, right? And I realized that it's this cheesy, it's one of those cheesy things where it's like it's always been within you kind of idea, you know? And what it was that was already was within me was I was already doing the kinds of things that it was like. For instance, I like teaching, right? I like to paint and make designs that I like, like what I'm doing right now. I'm painting some sort of weird dude, you know?
Yep.
And I realized I just need to do more of that, right? I just wasn't doing it enough. Do you understand me? And because I was always trying to say, well, look, I'm gonna creatively fulfill myself once I work here, or I'm gonna creatively fulfill myself once I accomplish this. But I realized that that's very fickle because I was always chasing something, and I think if you can just stop chasing whatever it is and just start doing whatever it is you want, you'll feel better. You'll feel more fulfilled. It's like this, for instance, like if you want to make a comic book, right? Like, well, I'm going to make a comic book once I have more time, or I'm going to make a comic book once I have more of this or more money, you know, like all these different external problems that are definitely going to affect whether you can accomplish things or not. But the question is, why wait? Why not just do it now?
Yeah.
You know? And that's something that I had to deal with myself. And recently I discovered, yeah, why not just do it today? start doing stuff that I like. And for instance, and that happened to me about a year ago, this idea. And then now I've been kind of doing it for the last year or so. Previously, I was kind of, again, on the chase. But then after I started teaching and started doing tutorials and I started getting classes, even that was not entirely it. And I realized I just need time. I just need more time. So if I want to do stuff, I can go do it. That's it. That's really what it is. And so then I started taking less classes. I downsized the studio. I removed things from my world that were just getting in the way, you know?
Yep.
And then now I'm in a position where I work 30 hours a week. I'm still trying to get it lower, you know?
Like 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 hour work week. No, like I'm trying to get it to the point where I don't feel like I'm working anymore, right? Even if I'm making things happen. And so now I took one less class, which allows me to do more streams, which I'm planning on doing one today. And then
Nice.
in the tutorials, I can make more tutorials. I can focus in on other things and make money in other ways that doesn't necessarily take more of my time. Get it?
Yeah.
And I feel creatively fulfilled because I'm always just making stuff that I like often. And if I want to try something new, I just try something new. So for instance, I started doing Unreal again, which was a lot of fun. I did that in the past, like a year or so ago, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And now I'm back at it. And you guys, did you see the little video that I
Yep.
had of
It's pretty fun.
Huh?
Did you make the animation as well?
Nah, man, I just what you call it? I just used something called Mixamo.
Oh.
Yeah, it's automated. And now
Oh,
I'm
okay.
thinking, I need to find ways to do animations even easier. And I'm looking at motion capture,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
there's like ways you could make motion capture out of just like your like a Connect.
Yeah.
Like I've seen
I
that.
think I've heard that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I bet I can do it. You know? And it's that simple. I mean, these days, like I'm not so much along the lines of, well, can I do it or should I do it? It's more like, no, I want to do it, so I'll just do it. You know?
Sweet.
Yeah, because a lot of times people are just like, well, once I have enough money or have more time, it's like, no, I'll just start making things. I'll just start doing
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
and then worry
That's
about the
I'm
rest later.
starting to feel in.
Yeah, and I think what you need to realize is that you don't need to have a career to get started on any of the things you want to get started on. Of course, you want to make money and make a living and be able to feed yourself and your family or whatever situation you may be in, of course. But at the same time, what I'm trying to say is like there's a lot of things you can start doing like way before you really can, especially nowadays. And that's what I encourage. Actually, I encourage that more than anything else. I don't encourage um, just career fulfillment. I encourage like life goal fulfillment, you know?
Yeah. That's more like my question. Like right now I'm working full time on video games, but I don't
Mhm.
feel fulfilled at all.
Yeah.
Unless I'm doing the painting we're doing, like that's much more fulfilled.
Yeah. And you should just do it more. Like when I was working at Sony, I still did personal work. When I worked at Blizzard, I did personal work. In fact, I got in trouble in both companies because they would catch me and they're like, hey, you need to be working. And I was like, I'm done now. And they're like, what? Like, I finished the work that I had to do for today, like an hour ago. And they're like, oh, never mind then, carry on.
Yeah, but
Because
sometimes I feel bad.
some people complain and whatever, but I was just like, hey, as long as I get the work done, like, what's the complaints about? And I made a
Well,
very clear point to them is like this is how I got better anyway. This was constantly doing personal work and studies. So you'd rather me just doodle and noodle and, you know, stay complacent, or would you want me to start perfecting what I already am pretty good at? And it was hard for them to kind of rebuttal that, you know?
Yeah. Somehow I still feel bad, like doing practice at the work hours.
Yeah, well, you don't have to. You can just do it before you start working and before you leave.
Oh, yes.
There's always a way, man. You just got to think about it. You know, if people feel like, oh, I don't have time, yeah, it's a big mistake. Even people that generally do not have time still find time.
Yeah.
And for me, what I did was I just did it either at lunch or I did it before work, you know?
Yep. Yeah, cool. Thanks for your time. Yeah, I'm going to work right now.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, you guys have a great day. Yeah.
Yeah, you too, man. Peace out.
Cheers.
Okay. Cheers.
All right. More questions? I hear someone breathing.
Hey, you were talking about like trying to mentor people into having like fuller lives rather than just their careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the sort of trying to figure that out has been something that I've been struggling with for years.
Yeah. Well, most of us have,
Um,
yes.
yeah. Like when I'm not working, I feel like, oh man, someone else is working right now and they're gonna be better than me, and um,
Yeah, you're right. These are true facts. But the question is, does it matter?
hmm,
You know, I am, I'll tell you a story that really resonated with me. Um, sorry, I'm like thinking of that game that I'm trying to put together. Right? Right now I'm like, I'm designing a character that I want to model. I'm just trying to think. Trying to think of cool stuff, but anyway, um, one of the things that I was once told, which is a great story, is about this fisherman. Did I tell you this the fisherman story already? I tell it
I
all
don't
the
know
time.
it.
Okay, I tell it all the time because it's a good one. So there's this fisherman, and he goes fishing every day, and he catches this exotic-looking fish, takes it home, cooks cooks it for his whole family for the day, and with that extra time, he hangs out with his children, plays with them, and then at night he goes dancing with his wife. And this is his day, and he repeats it every single day.
Hmm.
One day he goes fishing, and there's a businessman there on vacation fishing next to him, and he sees this guy, and he's like, "Wow, that's really exotic fish that you caught." The businessman, this is the businessman saying,
Hmm.
"Have a good weekend." Um, so the businessman's like, "Well, that's a really amazing fish," and the fisherman's like, "Yeah, I catch it every day. It's really delicious too." And he's like, "What? Really? Can I try some?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." And so the guy sets up a little camp, cooks up the fish for the fisherman, gives it to the fisherman. I'm sorry, gives it to the businessman. "Thank you, son." He's closed my door. Oh my gosh, slammed it. Son just slammed the door. My room. Anyway, he gives it to the businessman. The businessman tries it out and is like, "This fish is delicious. This is amazing. Not only does it look exotic, it tastes delicious. Like, have you ever thought about starting a business selling this fish?" And the fisherman's like, "Why would I want to do that?" He's like, "Well, you can start up a little market, right next to this little dock and start selling fishes, like, you know, for a reasonable cost." And so, well, why would I want to die? So, well, you have enough money and enough customers, then you can start up a little bigger market. Maybe have a little station in the fisher market or something and sell it there, make more money. And he says, well, why would I want to do that? He said, well, eventually, you could probably start your own restaurant. You know, put it in the middle of the village, have people go there and enjoy, and you can sell your fish there, and maybe sell other things. Start catching other kinds of fish. You know. He said, well, why would I want to do that? He said, well, eventually you'll make enough money that you can start opening up your restaurants all around the county or even your country, right? And he's like, well, why would I want to do that? He said, well, then you'll make so much money that you would buy armadas of fisherman boats, you know, and just basically fish to extinction, you know, and start getting other fish and all this other crazy stuff and get more money. And so, well, why would I want to do that? And he said, well, then you'll make so much more money that you can start going international. Maybe start merchandising, selling toys and plush um, dolls or something, or even have TV shows and animations or movies built off your franchise of their fish, you know? He said, well, why would I want to do that? He said, well, then you're making more money, man. And you make so much money and then that you'll be so wealthy, you'll be so rich that you can finally retire on your own wealth and fortune and just keep making money without even working anymore. And the fisherman's like, well, why would I want to do that? He says, well, then you can finally do the things that you love, you know, with your day. He's like, so, what do you like to do? And the fisherman said, well, I like to go fishing every day. I like to play with my kids. And then I like to go dancing with my wife. And the businessman's like, yeah, you could do that. You see the kind of the joke, right? Like you see the moral of the story.
Yeah.
It's like he's already doing it. So what's the point of doing all this other stuff just to
Yeah.
do what he's already likes to do? Does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
And I was told this story at GDC, which is like the Game
Okay.
Developers Conference, because I was talking about like, man, I don't know what, like keep doing stuff. I'm working at Blizzard, and I still feel like I'm at the top of the top, and I'm still like chasing something. And then this person told me the story, and I was like, wow, what a profound story to be told. You know, what a perfect timing in my point in life. And I said, no, that story really hits me hard. And so guess what? I like to teach. I like to make my own stuff. So that's what I do.
I think what's really cool about your situation is that the thing that you really like to do is influencing other people and like arguably making the world a better place because of it.
Yeah, sure. And there's
Where,
another. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you finish your point.
whereas I feel like for the most part, if people are just thinking about themselves or like it almost feels selfish to just be like, oh yeah, if I'm content and happy, then everything is fine because like
That's
there
fine.
is a whole lot in the world that is like messed up, right?
Yeah, sure. And let me make a point. If people aren't hurting other people, like
Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine whatever the hell people want to do.
yeah,
You understand? Like there's some people definitely want to be philanthropists and go out and change the world, and that's great. We need people like that. You know, and the more the better.
mm,
But people who just want to like just watch TV all day and just work at their 9 to 5, but they're like
mm,
super happy with their lives, you know. And I don't
mm,
mean like they aren't ambitious or anything, but they just are okay. They're content.
yeah,
You know, people put the word content as in like you're kind of lazy or you're this person that's just not willing to try hard. Like no, like someone like me who has been working really hard for most of my career,
yeah,
contentment is something I'm jealous of now. You know,
yeah,
because it just means you're just happy with what you got, right? And it
yeah,
took me a year and a half to really start training my mind to be able to do that. You know,
mm,
and I think it's the Western ideals is this idea of just keep pushing, keep pushing until you kill yourself,
yeah,
right? This idea of you go to school for 12 years, you get a job, or there to get
yeah,
a
sort
promotion.
of rat race feeling.
Yeah, you get a job, get a promotion, then maybe make your own company, you know, retire and die. Like
Mm,
that's like life in the modern
mm,
world. And to me, life in the modern world is it's more monochromatic. It's like doing the things that you love when you want to do them. Like
mm,
there is no time limit. There's no year to it. You know, If I want to go to school, I'll go to school. If I don't want to go to school, then I don't go to school. You know what I mean? Like it's reflective of my most immediate needs. And I have like a pyramid of interest, like things that are very valuable to me that I try to spend more and more of my time on. You know, everything else usually falls to the wayside of those things. And, you know, I heard a great thing once that was like, you know, changing. Well, there's a guy that said like, you know, you can be a millionaire by
Yeah.
having millions of dollars, or you can be a millionaire by changing millions of lives. And I prefer the latter.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Right.
better alternative for me personally.
Yeah.
And I think most people enjoy the idea too. Like the ability to help others is very rewarding.
Yeah.
We're very social creatures.
Right. I feel like there's a point at which like having more money just doesn't really mean very much anyway. Like you need enough to pay rent and food or something, but like
Yeah, you're right. There was a analysis that demonstrated that there is an absolute correlation to sadness based off of low income, meaning
yeah.
that if you have low amount of money and access to a limited amount of opportunities, you're going to be more depressed.
Yeah.
But that same analysis said there is though a cap, and anything above that cap, happiness is not determined by more wealth. Basically, they said it's like right around $60,000 to $70,000 a year. They said
Okay.
anybody from right around that point of income and beyond, the amount of happiness is not quantified by wealth anymore. Does it make sense? So
Yeah.
basically, if you make less than $60,000, you're more likely to be a little bit more unhappy, especially if you live in California, right? If you make lower than $30,000, you're most likely unhappy with your circumstances, right? And if you obviously make less than $15,000 a year, and if you're older, like it becomes even more challenging to find happiness because you are generally scrounging for scraps. But above 60 to 70,000, yeah, your happiness isn't all of a sudden increased by having more wealth. It just isn't. And I experienced this firsthand. I've made quite a bit of money in my career. In fact, there was a time where I was making $4,500 a week, and I was the least happy I've ever been in my career. And I left that job to work at Blizzard. And even though Blizzard is a big company, I took a huge pay cut. It was almost half. But I was so much happier working at Blizzard. So I generally tell people this because I want them to know, like, you know, working for big studios, making lots of money doesn't equate to
Yeah.
happiness.
I moved to the US primarily because of money.
Yeah, and you know, you've already demonstrated you're second guessing on a lot of this stuff. You know, like,
Yeah.
and that's fine. You're allowed to kind of come here and decide. You know, there might be more to life. And I'm trying to tell you that that's the thing. Like, and I tell people, you know, you don't have to move to California nowadays. Like, if you really want to work for Blizzard or some of these bigger companies, and if that's something that because some people generally do want it. Like, that's like their love. Like, they love, like I worked at Blizzard and I love Blizzard games, but I didn't love Blizzard enough to stay there, right?
Yeah.
But I have friends who love Blizzard. Like, they love their games, they love the company, and I can't imagine them ever leaving. You know? I just can't imagine them because they generally do love the studio. And why shouldn't they? It's a great studio. You know? But that's my point, right? Like, is that, what the laughter?
Sorry, people outside.
No,
Yeah.
kill them.
Because I'm at work.
Kill them. Yeah, all right, I'll be back.
I think I might be violating some HR thing.
By murdering your coworkers? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I haven't worked in this studio a long time.
So like in your fisherman example, um, so it's like it's sort of seeing how, you know, like this guy would be like really happy with what he was doing anyway, so there was no real need to be like super ambitious or
Yeah, here's another way of thinking about this. You could die tomorrow,
yeah.
right? You can die from a week from now. You can die a year from now. You can die 20, 30, 40, 60 years from now. Who knows? Okay? Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you live a long and fruitful life.
Mm.
But my point is that with that fact being true, like at least every day you should be doing the things that you care about. You know, even if that is working towards something, right?
Mm.
Like maybe you do want to own a business. That's fine. But are you happy right now trying to make that happen? You know?
Mm.
That's the important question you should be asking yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's not so much
Yeah.
about like you'll be happy when you start owning your business. It's more like, are you happy right now trying to own one with all the
Yeah.
difficulties that come with it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what I started to realize. For instance, me and my friend, we had a really good conversation yesterday because I was like, you know, I want to start making games again. And I
Mm.
want to start making games with you because I think you and I will be rock stars. We can totally do it. Like I can handle a
Mm.
lot of the assets, and then you can handle a lot of the programming because he's really good. And I
Mm.
was like, that's really all you need is art and programming,
Mm.
right? And I have a few friends who are really good at other things that we aren't good at, so that we can outsource a lot of the stuff,
Yeah.
you know. And
Audio.
huh?
Audio.
You guys outsource audio usually?
No, it's the thing that I always miss out on whenever I work in game jams and stuff. Because I'm like, yeah, I can program and I can do art. I can do everything. It's like, oh wait, like there's this giant chunk that I don't know anything about.
Yeah, audio. I was just thinking about that too, actually, last night because I
Mm.
was thinking about putting footsteps. It's like this person needs footsteps, like the sound of footsteps. But luckily, I used to be a musician, so I can at least get the audio in there
Yeah,
somehow.
I used to play music, but it's
Yeah.
like I feel like it's very different to doing Foley
Oh
and
yeah.
even just like sound design in general.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But my point is that I was trying to say, like, you know, me and my friend are committed to potentially doing this together, right? And
Yeah.
we have a really fun strategy, and I think it's going to work out really well.
Mm.
And you know, him and I, we have the bonus of having careers,
Yeah.
meaning that we don't have to make good games
Yeah.
to be successful.
Which is actually like super freeing in the sense that it's arguably more likely to do well anyway.
Potentially, I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell the future. But my point
Yeah.
is that we have um, no real risk.
Mm.
One thing that we were thinking about doing, for instance, was just getting a weekend and just sitting down for a weekend and just try to make a game.
Mm.
Like get an Airbnb, bring our computers, just make
Yeah.
a game.
Yeah,
And
we used to do that.
yeah, I think that's fun. That's a fun idea.
Mm.
And I was trying to explain to him, you know, like these sabbaticals is something that we can just try to keep doing. And
Mm.
you know, we had like this model like built around this idea like um, of just making games that look AAA and all that stuff, but are very simple and very indie, you know?
Mm.
And my point to him was let's just do it because we enjoy making stuff. And then the second thing was um, we're just happy working together. I love working with him on stuff. It's so much fun.
Mm.
And it goes to the happiness thing, the fisherman story. Like what can I do to find ways to work with my best friend? Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm getting back into Unreal. I'm starting to learn programming again. I used to know a little bit of it.
Mm.
If you want to play my game, my crappy game that I made,
I saw the video of the Don't Wake the Baby. Yeah.
yeah, Don't Worry Baby, Gumroad. There's a Gumroad link to it.
A friend of mine showed me the YouTube video.
Here, you guys are welcome to play it. If you have a Mac, you can't play it for a few reasons. One, because you're a loser and you need to get PC Master Race. And two, I just don't have a Mac version. But you guys can download it for free and just play it. And there's 3 levels. Good luck. It took me, like, pretty much I did the whole game by myself. It took about a month. It was a lot of fun, though, doing it. It was very fulfilling. I spent most of my time just trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And learning the tools. I think a lot of the stuff I forgot how to do, but I'll have to go back and try to remember. But it was fun. It was very rewarding. I spent most of my time, like I said, making it work. And what I discovered was, oh yeah, I need time for gameplay. I didn't have time for gameplay. Like actually making it fun. So anyway, to answer those types of questions, right? Like how do you find fulfillment in the things you do? Well, just start doing stuff that you feel that fulfillment. And it's going to be hard and it's not going to be easy, but that's the whole point, I have lots of friends who are tremendously wealthy, and they have this same conundrum running into their brains every day, and that just gives me more wisdom to kind of keep perpetuating this information to all you guys, because I see it every single day. Just yesterday, my wife was talking to me, one of our close friends, who they happen to be millionaires. They actually have millions of dollars, but they're going through some real marital problems, right? And the guy, my friend, I don't know him too well. I know the mom more because their kids get along in ballet class. Anyway, she or the husband is in the capacity of narcissism. Like he's always bragging about how much wealth he has, and it makes me like I get it. I'm like, okay, I get you, man. Like trying to make up for something, and it's indicative of the wealthiest people that we have running our country now, right? It's very, very similar. I'm starting to recognize this. There's a pattern of like, it takes a real scoundrel to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because
like you need to be able to make sacrifices other people aren't willing to make.
Yeah, and I started discovering that because there's many opportunities, for instance, in my career where I had to make a choice. And I realized the choices that I had in front of me, one of them would lead me in a route of corruption, and the other route would lead me to where I am today. And so I chose the one, obviously, that didn't lead to corruption. Because I said, look, there's actually a way that I can exploit and make more money.
Yeah.
Like, totally. And even if people would hate me and get pissed, like, I would still be filthy rich.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I've already made a lot of money. I already know that doesn't make me happier. And so I decided not to do that. And so then I decided to do the alternative, which was much harder, which was to admit defeat and failure, right? That's pretty much what it came down to. I had to admit defeat and failure and demonstrate true, integrity.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of growing up, whether it's like marriage or having kids or what, like a lot of these things are to do with being able to kill your ego.
Yes. And so now I work from home. I don't have a studio anymore. I just work from home. I employ through reasonable contracting. I do incremental increases in what I do at the same time try to remove, like I try to follow very smart business practices that have no detriment to anyone else, right? For the first time even I started doing sales of my Gomra videos. I haven't done that before, and I was like, I should do some sales because I believe that the margin of work versus profit is good, and it is not hurtful. People understand sales; they get it. Like things are cheaper. I'm going to buy them when they're cheaper. It doesn't hurt anybody. And I did that. I spent like 10 minutes writing anything about, hey, these videos are for sale. I took them half off.
You got them,
Huh? Oh yeah. And so then that increased my revenue for that day by 800%
Yeah.
for 15 minutes worth of work.
Yeah.
And I was like, ah, I can do more of this. So I decided to do sales every week, right? Not every day, but every week.
Mm.
Because I don't want to be constantly maintaining that. Like I want every day writing this email. No, just once a week is fine. I'll make a new tutorial, put a new group of sales, and then move on. And maybe do it once a week or maybe twice a week. Or two, a month off, a month on, whatever. But there's other things that I started realizing, posting on my Facebook, posting on my Instagram, ArtStation, DeviantArt, start posting on these places, links to my website so that people can find my stuff. And so that way I can get indirect sales. Basically, me not doing anything other than exposure will bring people to my
Yeah.
site because I have a lot of content. I have a lot of tutorials to sell.
Yeah.
And it means I can get more and more time. Basically, if I can start to switch over a lot of this stuff to my Gumroads, I can eventually get potentially 15 to 20 hours back
Mm.
because I'm doing art directing and freelance for a different company and another company, like two different companies.
Mm.
And it takes about 20 hours of my week, right?
Mm.
And I said, if I can get the sales to a certain margin, um, that means that for 3 hours of work a week, I basically replace those jobs,
Yeah.
which is great because then that means I get
Yeah.
like 15 to 20 hours, like I said, and that means like that's just time that I can spend learning new stuff, which will then
Yeah.
perpetually feed my tutorials.
Yeah.
I'm really good at learning things, and I'm really good at teaching those things that I've learned, and
Mm.
so that's my new strategy, and because it
Mm.
will give me more time back, and then I'll start making my own content. Like I'll be making my own games or my own cinematic experiences just
Yeah.
for my own time. And I'm patient, so even if it takes me a year to make one thing, that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
I will learn a lot, and I'll still be doing my mentorships. I even promise myself that even if I become like a A-list celebrity in the sense of development of whatever I do, right? Let's say I become like the next, I don't know, just
Notch.
yeah, like Notch. Notch is a good example. Like he's a
Yeah.
developer known for what he develops, right? Um,
Mm.
I'll still do my mentorships, and I'll still do them for like $500.
Mm.
But there'll probably be a long waiting list to join in, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but if you are on the list and you're available to take the classes, then yeah. And then maybe what I'll do is start selling the mentorship classes themselves, you know.
Mm.
But I already promised myself to keep them at a low cost and still to do them, even if I only am doing one class, you know,
Mm.
because it's important to me. It's something that I value.
Yeah.
And so, and I think a lot of you guys need to understand these types of principles. So I was just sitting down while I was talking about that stuff. Get back to demoing. Um,
Um, if I could just get back to the fisherman thing, like if and I know this is like largely a personal choice, but like if the fisherman had his like business and stuff and was like employing 200 people and that from the profits of that he was donating a whole bunch of money or like, you know, using the kind of power that he'd gained from that to affect um, like social change that could benefit way more than his family, I guess. Um, but it would leave him arguably less happy. Um,
it all depends. If that's what his goals were to change the world, then maybe it wouldn't, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. Like the fisherman story is not about living a modest life. That just happens to be the life that he had. It's just a good contrast to the.
yeah, okay.
It's just a good narrative. This just makes good storytelling. It
Mm,
wouldn't be as good storytelling if it's like Bill Gates versus Steve Jobs. Like
yeah,
there's no contrast because they're both like billionaires. Okay, you don't compare like these giants with each other. You compare like um, the heart of what the fisherman stands for, which is just common living. But see, now let's look at Bill Gates. Like, there's a reason why he stopped working for Microsoft. He still owns it. It's
right.
still his. because it's just like he made so much money, he realized there's like, what's the point of fucking making more money? Like, who
Yeah.
cares? Like what am I doing with my life, kind of thing. And he discovered he has more fulfillment making change in the world than he does making Xbox Ones. You get it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the point of the fisherman story is to get to where you want to make the things or do the things that you want to do, not so much about fulfilling more and more success. People, when they, and here's the problem, and I'm going to demonstrate it visually so you understand kind of the concept of this problem. There is a middle ground. There is like the dirt poor who are generally really sad and upset with their lives, right? And then there's the people who are moderately poor. This is like lower middle class. And I generally can find more happiness here. In fact, probably the most happiest people live here. Okay. And then you have people that are super duper rich who are just, this is like super small percentage. And these people are super happy too. The super filthy quadrillionaires like Bill Gates, you know, not people like Donald Trump because he's not filthy rich. He's just rich. But let me say, like, when you're like billionaire, because then you can start saying, I wanted to spend this money for good. And that's kind of like, think about like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. For instance, this is a great example. So Mark Zuckerberg bought a plot of land, I think in Hawaii, and people are like, hey, what the fuck, dude? Like, people own that. You can't just buy land, bro. You know, it's like if he went and bought like a national park, right? Just out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Like, he's like, you can't do that. You got to preserve that. And people like were going to sue him, and he's like, oh no, I won't buy it. Like, fair argument. I think there was a little bit of resistance because he wasn't sure what the complaint was, and then after he found out, he's like, oh yeah, fine, I'm not gonna buy it. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. All right. But with Donald Trump, for instance, Trump University, these kids were like, hey, we felt like we were duped. You fucked us over. We want our money back. And instead of like saying, you know what, I did fuck up, I'm going to give you that money back because I'm a quadrillionaire and I can make these mistakes. He's like, nah, he fought it like tooth and nail. And then he had to finally settle with $26 million. And I think they're still bringing up lawsuits that's not enough. You know? Because I don't think he is filthy rich. Okay? In fact, I think a lot of these people that are in politics are not. And so let me show you, like, so like the people in the middle, like people like me, which is a majority of us, we're confused. We don't know where our happiness lies. And then there's people who are right here, right before filthy rich, who are
Yeah, because they wish they were richer.
who put on the face that they're happy, but inside they're not. See, where you and I are is like I am happy. Like before, like I came to these revelations, I was generally happy. I wasn't like depressed, like which in my life every day. It wasn't like that at all. Like I just was constantly like, but why don't I feel? I think I should feel happier, right? If that makes any sense. And I think a lot of us sit here,
I
right?
feel like there's like potential to do actual like world changing stuff, but that like to do that might require a whole lot of time and effort that
It
may make me
does, unless you're filthy rich, right? And so,
yeah.
but like that's what I'm saying. Like some people can live in this spectrum and be completely happy, and they do make like changes in the world, even if as small as they are. Like this doesn't matter. My point is that you got to figure out like so. Like what I'm trying to get at is like the reason why these people are here who have like, most of the wealth in the world collectively generally keep wanting more wealth is because of a few factors. Have you ever like spent money on something that you didn't really need or even want, and you just have it and it's like in your closet or something and just collecting dust?
I do very little of that now.
Yeah, but you've done that, right? And in fact, I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone in this class has done that at some capacity, right? Like I've bought video games, for instance, I've never played.
Yeah,
Like
my
I
Steam
bought,
library is pretty big.
yeah, I bought a, excuse me.
I see.
I bought The Witcher 3. I've never played it.
Mm.
And it's just sitting on my PlayStation, just like collecting dust digitally, digital dust.
Mm.
And I'm just like, I shouldn't have bought that. Not because I don't think it's a good game. It's just because my hopes of playing it were high. But me actually playing it is very limited, right? And so my point is that now imagine that at the scale of a millionaire buying like a home that you never visit. And some of these people don't buy these homes. They mortgage them, meaning that maybe it's a $10 million home, but they put a $1 million down on it, right? Or it's a 20 million, $30 million home. You hear what I'm getting at? And so you live this lifestyle of spending so much money that there is no like money saved, right? At a large scale though. And when you have large scale debt, it becomes a real issue. Do you get what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And see, like, it's okay for you and I to kind of misspend a few $100s here and there, right? We can bounce
Yeah.
back from that. But imagine the misspending a few $100 million.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of these politicians and these, like, that's why they act the way they do. I don't think that in their hearts of hearts, they're truly malicious. Not all of them. I think some of them are sociopaths. But, most of them, I think they're just in this position where if they don't make more money, they might actually have to go back to middle class life.
Or-
You know, and they just don't want to. They just
Yeah.
can't humble themselves to say it's fine to just live off of pennies,
Yeah.
right? And like that's what I've come to the realization is like it's fine. I don't need to be a wealthy billionaire. I just need to make enough money to to live a comfortable and happy life. And I think a lot of these people don't realize that. And a lot of these people want something like that. And I think that's why there's like this like lower middle class people. They usually live in small towns. They have enough money to own their own home. They have enough
Mm.
money to have uh, reasonable lifestyles, you know,
Mm.
and they generally could be happy, you know,
Yeah.
and they're fine with being like a firefighter and just making firefighter wages, which is really reasonable. Like can get up to $100,000 in
Mm.
some areas, you know, and they just kind of just like, yeah, I don't really just watch, Sunday football and they don't get into it, you know, like
Yep.
it's fine. And that's something that I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to that
Yeah.
lifestyle of just like playing video games when I want, going out, hanging out with friends when I feel like it, and not feeling guilty, right? Like feeling
Yeah.
like that is part of what I want to do in my life. It's not like oh, if I'm not in Unreal right now, or I'm not painting right now, or I'm not, oh man, I'm wasting my time, right? Like that's this kind of perception that you were kind of putting on to me earlier, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
saying, no, that's like life. You're living your life. And you just got to be happy with what makes you happy. Now, is there a contrast to not doing any work at all and playing all the time? It's the opposite problem that we're
Mm.
talking about, right? Like I'm talking to people who work too much, right?
Mhm.
Kind of the comments that I was talking about are things that aren't brought up to people often, which is working too hard. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's the obvious side of the coin, which is working too less or too little.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you don't do anything, then you'll potentially trap yourself into some sort of poverty-stricken position. I had a
Yeah.
friend earlier, talk to me about like external problems, like everyone else is to blame. And I was like, no, you should look at yourself and ask yourself, what have you done to compound a career for yourself?
Mm.
You know?
Mm.
And it's like you don't have to put a lot of effort into it. That people mostly deem that you must do. You have to put 17 hours a day, or you're not really trying. No, you can put like 4 to 5 hours a day, and that's actually that's enough.
Mm.
You know, it's not like what you would normally hear. Like you got to put 10 hours a day. You got to like not sleep. Like you got no. I'm like no. You can totally do it. You just got to be smart about that time. That's all.
I
And
I I wonder if like there's sort of a competitive element to it where like you can only put in like 4 hours a day or whatever because most other people kind of don't.
sure.
But how like if everyone else did that too, then you'd have to do something else, like either more hours or
Well, let
be
me
more
let me answer
smarter
this
at it
question,
or
and I'm
something,
gonna let
right?
someone else ask some questions
yeah.
just in case, because I feel like you've been talking a lot.
Yeah.
You've been asking good questions. I don't think anyone's upset about the kinds of questions and stuff topics you're talking, but we share the class with other people.
For sure.
So let me make a very strong point, and then we'll move on. So imagine that imagine that there is a minimum, right? Like there's 15 hours, I believe 15 hours to 30 hours,
Mm-hmm.
a week is, I believe, the good range.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 15 being the minimum, 30 being the maximum. Obviously, if you go a little under 15, you're starting to underperform, I would say, but you're still doing something. Even if you do 10 hours a week, that's still fine. And if you go to 40 hours, which is more standard, typical people do this, I would say you're actually going beyond what I think is more recommended of you. Okay? But if you go 70 hours a week, you're working too much. And if you go 1 hour a week, you're working too little. You get it?
Yeah.
And so I believe this is a good range to sit in. And here's a good way of thinking about this is if you were to go to the gym 5 hours a day and just doing bicep curls, that's all you did for 5 hours, you're not going to grow your biceps. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
And
there'd be a point at which it's destructive.
Yeah, because what you need to do is you got to rest. You have to take breaks. You have to let your muscle get stronger. And that's the same kind of philosophy that I'm applying to working less, not like super hard weekly, because um, if you work the 7 days out of the week, it's like 4 to 5 hours every day to reach the 30-hour mark, right? Or 5 to 6 hours a day if you're only working on the weekdays, which is still reasonable. It gives you still a lot of time during the day to do other things. You understand? And allows your brain and your mind and your body to kind of recoup. You hear me?
Yep.
And so that's kind of the thing. But so imagine just working super hard, like every second of the day. Yes, you'll get you'll get a good head start for sure at some level, but at one point it will be destructive. You'll be tired all the time. You'll feel kind of overwhelmed. And worst of all, yeah, the overwhelming can lead to just complete um, procrastination because you just work so hard that you just turn everything off. The flame is completely off because you've
you start hating it or something.
overheated. Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. Like there's a balance of working a lot for sure, but also working just enough that you feel like you've done enough, right? Like and I contribute that to the same thing with working out, like very little, right? If you only put like a minute a day working out, you're not going to get super gains, So about like an hour or so a day is reasonable to work out every day to get the kinds of strength you need. So why would the brain be any different to have very minimal growth, Now there's a lot to learn and a lot to gain in the world of art, and your brain can handle more hours of work if you do it. And the reason why physical activity you can't necessarily do, or like physical activity like with your muscles, is because they have a breaking point. They can't be being extremely used for long periods of time. But that shorter period of time is like condensed enough that you really will get good training out of it. And so that's why I usually suggest people to start working less and less. And I had a student that had that problem. He was working 12-hour days for every assignment that I gave him, and he was kicking ass. He was doing really good work. But I was like, look, man, you're going to overwork yourself. You're building yourself a habit of working really hard. And I don't mean like that becoming a badass concept artist is easy. Like that is why it's hard work. Not because it's like you got to spend countless amounts of time. No, it's just because it takes a good amount of effort and time in general to become good at this, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say to him was that you're working too hard to the point where it might be detrimental to you in the future. So I was like, well, so we got to think of the long game. And I said, so do me a favor, take the 12 hours and bring it to 10. Right? And so that's what he did. He worked 10 hours the next class. and he was able to accomplish the same amount of work. He was a little bit more focused. Okay. And I was like, see, that wasn't too bad. And he's like, yeah, actually, I thought I needed that extra 2 hours, but I really didn't. He's like, I realized most of that time was a little bit of doodling, and I was actually getting distracted more often than I realized. I
Yeah.
was like, that's good. I was like, okay, now they take that down to 8 hours. Right?
Yep. Right.
And he's like, okay. And so then the next class, he submitted all his work again, rock star level. And I was like, so you brought it down to 8 hours? And he's like, no, I didn't. And I was like, oh, because I brought it down to 6. Whoa, what? And he's like, yeah, dude, I just completely just started using timers, and I had like more of a structured schedule. And when I was working, I would turn off my phone, I turn off my like computer,
Yeah.
internet, like access. I just got rid of all that stuff and just focused for like good 2 hours straight. And then I turned all that stuff on to get more reference, whatever, and check with email and all stuff. And then I got back to it for another 2 hours. And then I took another break, and then I took another 2 hours, and I like realized I just got done.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow. And he was able to do that in about 2 weeks' time.
Mm.
Able to completely shave off half the time that he was spending. Because a lot of time is just noodling and doodling, right? Like you're just sitting there,
Yeah.
you're like zoomed in on this one little area, and you're just like, I'm gonna make this so clean. AJ's gonna zoom in right here, and he's gonna see that I spent 7 hours on this one thing right here. You know,
And every size it's 2,000 pixels across, and it's all gone anyway.
yeah, and so he started to stop doing stuff like that, you know, and start focusing on the more immediate results. I mean, you can saw right here, like I'm pretty good about understanding that concept. I was able to paint these very quickly, right, without
Yeah.
much of an effort. And it's because I spent a lot of effort making it effortless,
Yeah.
you know? So hope that it
Thank
gives you some more rounded advice in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there any other questions or concerns or thoughts?
Could you talk a little more about like how much time you should spend studying versus like
Yeah, great.
I guess
That's a great question. I generally say half and half.
okay.
Half the time should be devoted to learning new things, and then half the time should be practicing the things that you've learned.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the way that people think about it is like I should just constantly be practicing something, right?
Mhm.
And my argument against that is, well, what if you don't have the right insight? You know, then you're
Right.
practicing things that are not necessarily good or useful. You'll get better at them. For instance, Michael Jordan had a really good phrase that I don't agree with 1,000%. I don't agree 100%, but he basically said, you know, if you make 3-pointers with bad form a million times, you'll get really good at bad form, you know? And there's a lot of truth to that, but where I disagree with that is that if you practice something a lot that is wrong, eventually your brain will start to say, I think you're doing something wrong, okay? And it will forcibly push you out to look for new information. You understand? Like it just practicing something and iterating a lot will
Mm-hmm.
inevitably make you look into different ways of doing it, especially if you're doing it wrong. Okay? But that's the longer route is what I'm trying to get at. Okay? The faster route is to recognize this isn't awesome. I spent already 2 weeks on this and it's still not awesome. I need to stop and do some research, you know? And if you build this habit
Yeah.
of like checking in on yourself every other day, then you'll improve more and more often. Hold on, I'm going to close my window. There's a guy like mowing his lawn. Give me 1 second. All right, so let me demonstrate this to you. Have I done the Earth and Moon example to you guys? I don't think this does. So here is the Earth, here's the Moon. How far is the Moon from the Earth in miles?
Uh,
Guess.
guess?
Yeah. If you don't
Oh.
know, guess. Any number, it's fine. I give you permission to be wrong.
Oh, jeez.
No, don't give him any answers. Just guess. Just throw a number out there. Don't type. Just answer the
30
question.
million. I
What
don't
did you
know.
say? 30 million?
40 million?
Okay, nope. 40 million, nope. Keep guessing.
Keep guessing?
Yeah,
Am I higher or lower?
these are really high.
Oh, jeez. Okay. 20 million?
Nope. Keep guessing.
10 million?
Nope. Keep guessing.
5 million?
Nope. Keep guessing.
1 million?
Fabian knows already. All right, we're going to stop there. So this is you practicing without studying.
Right.
You see how long it'll take you to finally get to the answer?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's going to be inevitable. But
Right.
it's going to take forever.
Right.
You hear me? Now, do a little bit of studying. Now, how far is the Earth to the moon? You can research this however you like,
Right.
and then tell me the answer.
Oh, what the heck? Do
What's
you want to
the
know miles?
Yeah, in
I'm
miles.
in Canada.
Yeah, miles, please. This is America. Trump's America. We don't like outsiders.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
Uh,
You can tell me in kilometers. It's fine.
Okay. It's 384,000.
384,000. That's right. Which is about 250,000 miles.
No.
Okay, it's 250,000, which is close to 250,000 miles.
Okay.
So what did you do to get the answer?
I just Googled it.
Yeah. Now, and let me just make a very clear point. That's how you can get better at art too. Like you
Right.
think it's as silly as like, no, wow, how could I Google how to like get better at? Oh wait, that does make sense. Because there's tons of video contents out there. There's tons of articles and demos and people who talk about it. There's constant. There's access to just great artwork that you can look at as reference. You hear what I'm saying? Like, this is what I'm trying to get at. If you don't do that, the Googling or looking it up or trying to find the answers on your own, and if you just keep guessing,
Yeah.
you're gonna struggle the whole time, right? You're gonna feel like, ah, man, it's so hard. It's so hard to get good. It's like if you don't know how to draw the arm, right? And you're trying to draw the arm, you're like, ah, man, there's something wrong with this arm. I don't know what it is. Let me try again. I feel like there's still something wrong with it. Let me try again. Man, there's still something wrong with it. Let me try again. Man. And you do this for like 7 hours. You're going to get so pissed.
Yeah.
You're going to still feel so frustrated. You're going to feel like you're a terrible artist. You don't think you have what it takes to become an artist, right?
Yeah.
But now, in the context of the example that I gave you, now do you see how silly that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like guessing on something you have no idea. If you don't know how to draw an arm, you just don't know how to draw an arm. You understand? Like you can recognize an arm when you see one. You can recognize a well-drawn arm when you see one, a well-painted arm, right? But that's because your brain is built to recognize things immediately. And it doesn't mean that your brain knows what makes them look that way. It just knows it looks that way. It's built into us. It's important that our brain is running the show to recognize things on the fly like that for us to live in this world. Because imagine if you had to constantly be like, is that really an arm? Like, is it? And he just sat there for like 20 minutes just looking at someone's arm, trying to make sure that it is actually a physical arm. You know? Your brain is at work saying, no, it's an arm. Move on with your life. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Bro. That's a person. That's a person standing there. Don't worry about it. Okay? Your brain is so good at like just running the show. There's a great show about optical illusions. It shows you how your brain, even when you consciously know something is true, your brain will still be like, nope. Watch, let me show you. It's one of my favorite illusions. Okay. Oops. So you saw me outline this thing I tried to do as accurate as I could, right?
Yeah.
So you agree that this is the same shape as this table that I've drawn, right?
Yep.
Now I'm going to rotate this. I'm not changing anything other than the rotation of it. And place it on that.
Oh man.
You see that? Now,
Yeah.
you see the illusion, right? The illusion makes this table seem skinnier.
Yeah.
But the reality is that they're exactly the same shape. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And even though I told you that, and even though you saw me do the rotation, you still can't genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? So your brain is really good at just saying, nope, that table on the left is skinnier. Just believe me, bro.
Yeah.
And the one on the right, trust me, it's a little bit squatter, it's a little bit more thicker. Believe me. So what is this kind of leading to? What's the point of this idea? Well, this is kind of creates the illusion that people get into when they start to try to draw something because they know what it looks like when they see it. Well, I'm trying to prove to you, but you actually don't know how to construct it. That's a different part of your brain. Make sense?
Mhm.
And that's why
Yeah.
I say half and half. That's why you have to study just as much as you practice. Because when you study, what you're doing is you're giving your brain new information. The
Right.
reason why I can draw and paint the things that I do is it's not because I'm talented. It's because I just understand how the world looks in some capacity. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is why, like, when you watch my Gumroad videos or tutorials, and you see me explain how I paint or light something, it makes sense because it makes sense with the world that you live in, right? And it's just observations of what I've seen myself and things I've put to practice. You understand me?
Yeah.
And so when I tell you to study more than just practicing, I really mean it. Now let me give you another. Let me give you another example of thinking about this as I do more painting. If you were to look at two different people and their training regimen in a sport, let's say like soccer, okay? And person A, all they did was spend 3 hours playing the game of soccer. Okay, that's all they do. That's their training regimen. Just play 3 games of soccer. And then person B, their training regimen is not just to play the game of soccer. They play an hour of soccer, like a scrimmage, but they do that after they do 2 hours of training, where training involves doing drills, practicing plays, weight training to
Yeah.
strengthen specific muscle groups that are useful for the game.
Mm-hmm.
So they still spend only 3 hours of genuine training, right?
Yeah.
But they have a segment of their training that is focused on indirectly, or they're focused on like just kicking the ball better, running faster, condition training. And then they practice. They play 1 hour of the game against their teammates or whatever. Out of person A or person B, which person do you think will come out better?
B.
B. And why do you think so?
Because I spent the time, like, I guess, studying or
Well, focusing on the traits that will help
on
them
the
sharpen their instincts, right? So think about it. when you're playing a game of soccer, sometimes you don't even get the ball. Like you could play a whole game with touching the ball like 5 or 6 times. Like that can actually happen in like an hour, you know?
Yeah.
So how are you truly getting better at that game if you're not really getting the ball that often, you know?
Right.
Yes, you'll get better, like I said, periodically through many years of doing that. Yes, you'll still get better. There's no doubt, okay? But you get exponentially better if all you did for a half an hour is just kick the ball back and forth with your friend or your teammate while running, let's say. Because that impulse, that instinct you're training is now going to be more relative when you start to actually play the game for reals, you know?
Yeah.
And so how does this apply to art? Well, it's the same idea. Like if you are not practicing your perspective, your forms, your anatomy, your design sensibilities, your shape understanding, your form language, your edge control, all of these things, you know? If you're not practicing any one of these things at any given time, then that is why your anatomy, your edge control, your forms, your anatomy, your structure, all that stuff starts to fall apart. It's because you don't have any formal practice with that. You're not studying. You're not trying to advance these knowledges. You get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to eat your art vegetables. Basically, is the longest. It's
Yeah.
like the point I'm trying to get across to you. Okay. And that's just not what you're doing when all you're doing is just painting and painting and painting, and you get frustrated. That's the part that that bothers me the most of the process. It's not so much about that it's slow. I don't mind. I think if you do that, you'll get good regardless. You know, this still will help you because I think inevitably you'll be forcing yourself to look at other things, right?
Yeah.
But that frustration is what kills people, man. That's what kills people's motivation and kills people's their ambition because they feel like they're making no progress. And the illusion is you are making progress. It's just slow burning. It's hard to quantify. But it's easier to quantify when you go to learn how to paint folds and then you go to paint folds without looking at your reference and your notes and you still can't do it. You can say, oh, I probably wasn't paying enough attention. Let me go back again and try again. Let me pay more attention this time. You see the difference? Versus just mindlessly trying to paint folds for 7 hours.
Yeah.
Because you're not comparing it to anything other than your own knowledge, and your knowledge is already very limited, so you're going to be very fucking frustrated at the end of it. So how much time you should spend in studying is, I say, half and half, especially for beginners. But in my opinion, if I really had to give you a number, I would say 80% of the time should be studying.
Okay.
And that number starts to slowly go to half and half eventually.
Oh.
Because then you'll just start to be good at whatever it is that you're at, and you just are, in essence, just practicing and sharpening that blade, that skill. You know, when you start getting to the apex of what you can do. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah. And I guess, like, in terms of retaining that knowledge, how much should you be drawing, like, from references?
That's why you got to practice.
Okay.
It's one thing just acquiring the knowledge. It's another thing to actually practicing. Like I can tell you to do 50 push-ups a day, you'll get really good at push-ups. But if you don't do push-ups, then you're never going to get good at push-ups. Like not the knowledge is half the battle, right? Like that's why I say half and half is a good number. Like knowing things is really valuable, but then putting that stuff into practice. Like Einstein didn't just have to come up with the theory of relativity. He had to find equations and then prove it.
Yeah.
You know? And if you just do something a lot, like if you practice studying a lot, you'll get better at even studying, you know? All right. I'll take one more question. I'm going to go. If there is any other questions. If not, I'm going to bounce out, guys. Yes?
Hello? Hey. Okay, so you've been telling us to focus on making great ideas, right? And so I was wondering how do you study making good ideas?
Let me ask you, how do you think you could study good ideas?
I don't know. Look at other people's good ideas and try to analyze them, I guess.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh.
It's not a mystery. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to make it seem so simple, but it really is. It's not so complicated to find what to study. It's only complicated because you try to make it complicated. You make it in your mind. You think it should be more complicated, right? Because it's when you see someone like me draw like extraordinary things, perhaps, right? Or your favorite artist draw extraordinary things. It's like magic, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not. They've just been doing it for a long time, and they just have certain interests. You get what my point is? So, so that is me kind of letting you give your own fish, right? You cut your own fish in that one, okay? Right?
Yeah.
Because you just got to start studying something. And the reason why is that it piggybacks to another question. You get what I'm getting at? Because if you start with the question of how do I study ideas? Well, maybe I should just look at the different ideas and analyze them. Like you just said, that's what I would do. Okay, that's what I have done. And then you start analyzing. Let's say you start analyzing uh, Guillermo del Toro, like his stuff. Like you like his ideas. Like his ideas are really cool. There's something interesting about what he does. So you start analyzing and you say, oh, he does a lot of sketches. He's really into monsters, movies, and anime. So maybe I should start looking at anime and see kind of anime that he's into and why, and read these books and and then you start finding out the authors of these books, and you say, oh, well, who are their authors and why do they find their influence? What was it about it? You get what I'm saying? Like it just piggybacks off of the last question
Yeah.
because you could
Okay.
be wrong too. That's the thing. You could find an answer that's wrong, but that's more knowledge now that you've acquired. Make sense?
Yeah.
And the problem that I have usually with those types of questions is not so much that it's a bad question. It's actually a fair question, right? Because people make it seem like ideas and creativity is something very cerebral, like something that is like spiritual. And I'm
Yeah.
just trying to say, no, it's not. It's just as mechanical as trying to pick up a weight off the ground, you know? Our brain uses proteins to make new memories and synapses to ignite those proteins to create memories, right? Like if I take a hammer to your hand, I'll break your hand, right? Because it's a physical thing. If I take
Yeah.
a hammer to your brain, you'll break your brain because it's a physical thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's nothing spiritual about it. It's just a biological machine. And if you understand that, then you say, okay, well then if that being said, based off of Anthony Jones's assertion, then he's saying that you can basically train creativity, just like you can train getting stronger with your muscles. And then that's exactly what I'm saying. And so you just got to figure out, um, I mean, you don't really have to figure out, you just got to get started with your weight training for your brain, for creativity. That's all. If, uh, if, if someone was to come to me and say, you know, like, how do you start to bench press, whatever, I'd be like, you just start with doing some push-ups first. Start with push-ups, and then move on to other weights and different things until we start to isolate. You know, same thing. Same thing with training creativity and coming up with new ideas. Now, um, what are the tools? I'm going to talk about 2 points here. I'm going to give you some tools, okay, to help you train this a little bit better. One of the tools is to find patterns in great ideas, okay?
Okay.
Because when you find patterns, then you can repeat those patterns in your own work, and then you should be able to echo or rhyme those great ideas. Not copy, because then it's plagiarism. But echoing and rhyming is a good way of thinking about it philosophically, right? One thing that I've discovered is usually mashing things together is usually how uniqueness comes. So taking like ghost hunters and putting them with pest controls, Ghostbusters, uh, amusement parks with dinosaurs, Jurassic Park. You get what I'm saying? Like I found a pattern that if you just take one thing and put it with another thing that people didn't imagine, you have something unique. And then now to make it good, takes a whole nother level, right?
Yeah.
But that's something that I discovered from just constantly paying attention. A sword, lasers, lightsaber. You know what I mean? World War II dogfights, space, Star Wars, like space battles. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's no mystery, like how these things come together. But it's like it becomes to become a master of it, you have to constantly be practicing it and studying it, right?
Yeah.
And then so the second way of understanding this is that, being creatively minded, I think, is a natural human ability. We just got it beaten out of us since like middle school. Okay? I think when we were all kids, we were all relatively creative. We were always thinking outside of the box, most of us. It's just society came in and said, no, that's not so, there's no career there. You get my point? And
Yeah.
and so it's already in you. You just got to reveal it. It's already built in. And so you just got to get back into it. And I think a lot of what I'm saying is helpful to that. Studying, practicing, sharpening those blades, constantly paying attention to what makes things interesting and creative is pretty valuable. And if you want quantifiable results, like don't look at movie reviews as much. Go watch movies yourself and have your own opinion. Try not to listen to anyone else's opinion and just pay attention to your own. And then listen to what your opinion says. And then go online and read what other people say. Right? Because then, like for instance, some people will go into a movie or play a video game with already preconceived review based off of what they saw already. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And if you just go in there dry, like without, like that's why I was so mad with the whole Life trailer because I was like, I try to avoid reviews, I try to avoid, ratings and whatever, and I just go watch it. And if it's good, like if I leave the movie saying it's good, then I start asking myself, why did I like it? And why did I think it did well? What were the things that did well? And then I go online and see if other people agree or disagree, and then I try to objectify what that means. And then I say, well, although I hated the movie Twilight, I watched it, didn't like it, that was garbage. But it did gangbusters in the movie theaters, right? And so I asked myself, why? Why was it so successful? And I don't try to stick to shallow reasons. I try to stick to practical and realistic reasons because it'll allow me to be a better designer. You understand? For instance, it was for teenage girls. That's why, like, when Edward walks into the sunlight and he's shimmering glitter like diamonds, um, if I'm a teenage girl still like going through puberty, um, my boyfriend's basically an engagement ring. That's super hot.
Yeah.
But for someone like me, it's kind of like, what? That's freaking stupid. Yeah. But it's fine. It wasn't made for me. And I respect that. Just like Transformers isn't necessarily made for teenage girls. You know, the
Yeah.
likelihood of a super hot um, girl falling in love with Shia LaBeouf is very unlikely. Not to say that he can't bring in the girls with the charisma. I'm sure he could. It's just that doesn't happen in the real world as often as we would like, right? And the chances of him saving the world are even more unlikely. You know, the practicality of robots turning into cars when they can turn into any other mechanical thing. Why don't they just follow the Decepticons and turn into tanks and jets and vehicles that turn into other war machines? You know, the practicality is so silly to turn into a Camaro, right? Or a truck, you know, versus Starscream, who is a F-16 fighter jet, you know,
Yeah.
and it's okay because when I was a little kid, I loved cars and trucks and jets. So seeing robots turn into that kind of stuff was cool as fuck. You know what I mean? And that's why that show does gangbusters, because of for similar reasons. And you got to say, okay, then with that philosophy, then why did a movie like Battleship do so poorly? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you got to look at the nuances. Well, because Battleship didn't have Michael Bay as a director, and Michael Bay is him and his team are really good at making action movies. They're like some of the best. Okay, they get it. You might not like his films, but a lot of people do. Fast and the Furious franchise. You might not like that franchise. I mean, they went from just like a bunch of street like thugs that stole cars and raced them to now like international spy hunters. Right? How did that happen? When did that happen? I don't remember. You know? Like the latest one, they're like literally driving away from a submarine in like the Arctic or something. I don't know how they got there or why they're there and why they're still driving Lamborghinis. But that's the point. Like they know exactly who their audience is, and they know exactly who they're selling it to, and that's why they keep making millions and millions and millions of dollars. You understand? And it's easy to listen to all your art friends complain about the movie and think it's garbage, but it's harder to find why it's not actual garbage, why it actually is something of value. Now, will it be like the next Forrest Gump or something? Probably not, right? But
Yeah.
there's tremendous value to understand why. And this is what I'm trying to say. Like, if you want to understand ideas, instead of you have to not just say, like, listen to your own opinion so you know what kind of artwork that you want to make, but then also understand why other things do so well or do so poorly. Even the stuff that I loved did so poorly. Like, I loved Pacific Rim, but it did terribly here in America. You know? Because I love robots and I love monsters. And you have both of them punching each other in the face. It was freaking awesome. All right? I could care less about the plot. I actually don't even remember what the plot was. But it did terribly here in the States. And I think overseas in Japan and China, they're like, they loved it. For the same reasons that I loved it. You know? And so I just went and saw Power Rangers. Loved it. I thought it was actually really great. And I have friends online that are like, this movie was garbage. And I think a lot of that has to do with their little bit being pretentious. And I'm calling them out on their pretentiousness. I'm like, I try to remind them, this is a kid's show and it's a kid's movie. And my kids and I, we watched it and my kids loved it. You know? They're more excited about Power Rangers than they've ever been. And that's how those franchises work. They know who they're selling to, you know? And if you have an objective point of view, you can start spotting this stuff easier and easier and easier. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like if you want to get objective feedback on this stuff, don't go to Rotten Tomatoes. Go to a few sites. First, go to Box Office Mojo. This is where I get my real practical research from watching the movie and then seeing how well it does. So for instance, you could go look at a movie like Logan, right? Oh, this is great. Then do a comparative, like look, it Logan and is already at $96 million. So I guess like, oh, that's the budget. Oh wow. So not only was it the cheapest one out of the three, I think it did best. It did the best out of the three. Like total gross of these other movies are like garbage compared to just like the opening few weeks of Logan. That's great. That's great to know because I love that movie. Worldwide gross, yeah, it's dominating. It's already made $500 million. It's made over $500 million. That's great. You know, this is like objective feedback because they've spent more money and made very little money or not as much as they wanted. Like they only made $10 million profit from these, like 20 to $10 million profit, where over here they made domestically on the opening weekend. Over here it made, I'm sorry, total gross. It already made double the budget. It's great. That means if Hugh Jackman wanted to actually make the Wolverine franchise again, right? They have the money and the green light to do it, but that's his last Wolverine movie. Which probably why it's sold even better. Let's look at Kong. I love Kong too. So Kong made it was a $185 million budget, and domestically it only made 136. That's actually really good because it also can go internationally. And so it went foreign. So then that means total it's already made it's a little under $500,000 or $500 million, which means there's going to be a sequel. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because they made twice as much as they spent on it. That's in less than a month. That means they're absolutely gonna make a sequel. Hands down. No question about it. Now let's see how Power Rangers did. I love Power Rangers, right? So this is where it becomes an issue, right? Because look, they only made $100 million. I'm sorry, they spent $100 million on the budget, but they've only made $65 million. Now we have to give them more time, but they have to at least break even to warrant a potential sequel. And this makes me sad. So regardless of how much I liked it, there's something to be said about this, the actual money. People pay with their wallets, right? Or people not pay with their, people judge with their money. And that's a really valuable insight. Because there have been movies that had really terrible reviews that sold gangbusters. And there's movies that had great reviews and didn't sell at all. So that's why I always pay attention to this more than I pay attention to anything else. So they have till the end of April to get this to 100 million. And if they don't, then they're going to have to try to make their money back in DVD sales and stuff, which I think they will. But I don't know if they'll be able to make a sequel from this, which is sad because I wanted to see the sequel. I liked it a lot. It was really great. Like, I guess kids really just don't want to watch Power Rangers anymore. Like, they don't want to watch the movie. They love the TV show, but they're not down to watch the movie. If that movie came out in the 90s when the garbage movie that came out instead, the one that I watched when I was a kid, even when I was a kid, I hated it. If they made the movie the way that I saw it today, or not today, the recent one, like the way that they made this one, which was more about characters and stuff like that, it would have been a much better film. But the one that they did in the past was like a longer episode. And it revealed how cheesy that show is. So, anyway, hope that helps you out. Gives you some good insight on how to find ideas.
Thanks.
Yeah, like you gotta just research and just look into it, and you'll find new and alternative ways. Another great place to find information about like movie insight. I like to listen to the Hollywood Reporter. They do these awesome interviews where they literally get like the directors of the best movies that came out of that month or whatever, sit in a room together and just talk to each other. Like you have like Scorsese and Ridley Scott and like Quentin Tarantino like yelling at each other about like what they think is good movies, and it's really cool. Versus just someone's opinion. Not to say that people's opinions aren't valuable. It's just it's the people who actually make these films have a lot more insight. That's all. Anyway, you guys have a good weekend. Good work, y'all. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate everything that you guys have been doing. Keep in touch with one another. Talk to each other. Do Google Hangouts if you can. There's the Discord as well. Find opportunities to learn from one another and learn with each other. And with that being said, laters, guys. Have a great weekend. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.